All right, y'all, we are back with another video, another episode of Candace Owens exposing Kamala Harris for the fraud she is. Because like I said before, the mainstream media is not going to cover this. They know for a fact that Kamala Harris lied in her book, using this black woman, trying to say that's her grandma. Come to find out, it's not. So who was this woman that she took a picture of in her book and trying to claim is her grandmother? So there's a lot of things that Candace Owens is uncovering, and that's the reason why I get these videos out, just so we can get even more eyes on these type of videos that Candace Owens is doing. Because like I said before, mainstream media, CNN, MSNBC, they ain't gonna cover anything like this because they don't want the American people to know. Now we come to this right here where Candace Owens said that she spoke with Kamala Harris' uncle, and he told her some things about Kamala Harris, and we about to find out exactly what he said. So please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Please turn your notifications to all, because there's a lot of people saying that they're not getting the notifications. So please make sure when you subscribe, turn your notifications to all. That way you'll get every last video and you will never miss out on any of this, all right? So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive straight into it, and let's find out what Kamala Harris' uncle told Candace Owens. Let's go.
I am absolutely giddy today, you guys. I did it. I spoke to Kamala's uncle officially.
Oh. And
by the way, he's a gem. 10 out of 10. I really wish that he was running for president instead of her, because he comes across as a very honest man. I'm going to tell you all about that conversation and how it's now led me to many more questions. So many more questions that I have about Kamala and her true heritage. Also, she's once again been asked about her racial identity. This happened just 3 days ago. And suddenly she's a little iffy on the answer. Kamala and me are now in a very particular kind of relationship. I'm like Maury, and she's essentially my guest.
Yeah.
I'm asking her a question. Kamala, during your run as president, we asked you if your genealogy was actually Irish Indian.
You said no. The lie detector determined that was a lie.
Oh! Welcome back to Candace. Where to begin? Where to begin? Okay, so 2 days ago or 3 days ago, Kamala was asked again about her Black heritage, and suddenly she is getting a little iffy on the details. You can see she does not want to engage in the conversation, and the answer that she actually gives is fantastic. It is just fantastic, and we need to now pick it apart. So she appeared on a show called All the Smoke, and she was interviewed by the hosts, which are former NBA players Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson. I want you to pay very close attention to her answer here. Take a listen.
What do you think when you hear people kind of questioning just the fabric of who you are?
Well, one, I don't listen to it.
Okay.
I'm really clear about who I am, and if anybody else is not, they need to go through their own level of therapy. That's not my issue.
Their issues, right?
My mother was very clear. She was raising 2 Black girls to be
Oh,
two
my God.
proud Black women.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh,
that
my
was
God.
it was never a question.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's funny because over the years, journalists, some, not most, will want to talk about it. And I say, okay, if you want to have this conversation, I'm prepared to have it, but sit down and get comfortable for a few hours.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to start talking about race in America, you want to talk about the 1/8 rule?
A drop.
You want to talk about what it means in terms of who you are perceived to be and the impact that can have on the rest of your life, regardless of who you actually are in terms of your God-given capacity and the rights that you have and should have. So, you know, I don't mess with that. I think that's other people trying to figure some stuff out that, and they
got some issues.
They got to deal with
Wow. Wow.
Wow. So she just doesn't answer the question at all.
Exactly. She didn't even answer it. Now, a lot of y'all noticed when she was talking to this Indian woman, when they was like cooking in the kitchen, the woman said, Kamala, you're Indian, right? She said, yes, yes.
Okay, so what we're gonna cook today is an Indian recipe.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
you are Indian.
Yes.
Okay, and I don't know that everybody knows that, but I find that wherever I go and I see Indian people at the supermarket, on the street, everyone's like, you know Kamala Harris is Indian, right? It's like the thing we're so excited about to have you running for president.
Yeah.
So we're both Indian,
Yes.
but actually we're both South Indian.
Yes. You look like the entire one half of my family.
Okay, thank you.
You do.
I've been telling people
You
we're
do.
related already,
Yeah.
so this is perfect. It's basically true. And so, were you raised eating South Indian food?
South Indian food.
Now all of a sudden, my mama raised 2 black girls. I told you it all depends on who she's talking to. Whoever she's talking to is how she gonna give an answer. And she pretty much still didn't really answer. She just said, my mama raised 2 black girls. I mean, this woman is a fraud, man. Just a liar. And she got people believing that she's black. And she's not.
Right. So before we had her really leaning into being black, and all of a sudden she's not. She doesn't even mess with that. I don't mess with that. I don't even mess with that. They need to go to therapy. She's pulling this Freudian technique. Obviously, I've spoken to you about Freud, who was a disgusting human being who essentially gaslit women who were actually being abused by their fathers. So what she's doing is this exact same Freudian technique of gaslighting people by being like, actually, you need therapy. The problem is you. The problem is actually you for asking the question. No, Kamala, we're asking the question because you made this a theme in your bookie book, which we're going to get to in a little bit, okay? So you don't get to now just not address the question whatsoever. Put yourself in her shoes, okay? I'm going to put myself in her shoes. I'm running for president of the United States, okay? And these questions keep popping up about whether or not I am black. Do you know how simple it would be to simply answer the question? List your black relatives in 4 seconds. I would be like, this is my grandma, this is my grandpa. Suddenly she's a little iffy on the details here. Why didn't she just say, yes, obviously my grandmother is Beryl. Here's a picture of her. She's black. I'm disgusted with the people that are even calling this into question. Here's my great grandmother.
See, she ain't gonna do that.
I am obviously black. Instead, she goes, oh, do you really want to talk about it? That's what I say. They show us, do you really want to talk about race? Do you really want to talk about the 1/8 rule? I mean, how dare she? And the answer is yes, Kamala. Actually, I would like to talk about it. Yeah, I'm actually totally up for talking about the 1-drop rule, the 1/8 rule. Let's discuss history. That's what those journalists should have done. That's what those former NBA players should have done, not giving her a free pass. I would have been like, no, ma'am, name your ancestors. And why are you bringing up the 1/8 rule at all? Let's talk about the history here, okay? The 1-drop rule was actually a legal doctrine in the United States that was used as a means of racial classification.
And by the way, those 2 former NBA players got roasted in the comment section because they did no follow-ups with her. Whatever Kamala Harris said, they just let her get away with it, and they just got to the next question. How y'all gonna interview the vice president and not do any follow-ups? When she said that the time that Kamala Harris said that my mama raised 2 black girls, they should have said, well, what about when you just told this woman that you Indian? You didn't tell her you was black. See, that's the stuff that pisses us off, is that people let her get away with this, and she only let people interview her that won't do any follow-up. They just let her spill crap to the people and get on to the next question. Why did they even interview her if you weren't gonna do any follow-ups? That's why the whole comment section roasted them.
Okay, it really dates back to the antebellum period in Virginia, where people of color were considered legally white if they had less than 25% African ancestry. So we're talking about something that was pre-Civil War, but then the classifications became especially relevant throughout Jim Crow in the South, obviously, because of segregation. So they're like, are you white or are you black? So they needed to know how to quantify whiteness and blackness. The laws were first officially codified in Tennessee as one of Virginia's racial integrity laws. They wanted birth certificates to just be very clear whether a parent was legally white or legally a Negro, so that it was known which laws in society you had to abide by. What about Indian Americans? Because strangely, she brings up her mom. You would think the first thing she would do would be to bring up her dad. Instead, she brings up her mom. She's like, my mom was very clear that she was raising 2 black women. Your mother is Indian, like fully 100% Indian. So the fact that the first person that you recall is a non-black person is suspicious. And regarding Indian Americans, just to be clear, in 1923, the Supreme Court decided in the United States versus Bhagat Singh Thind that Indians were classified as Caucasians, as they had been by anthropologists. They upheld that, but they also made it clear that they were not considered white. So that is probably the answer as to why her mother put Caucasian on her birth certificate. That was actually the legal classification for Indian women. Now, Also, regarding this one-drop rule, Kamala Harris was never subject to it ever in her entire lifetime. She was born in California.
Yep.
Just to be clear, that was the very first state to end segregation, and they did that back in 1947. So they did it 7 years before the Supreme Court decision of Brown versus Education, which federalized desegregating all of the schools. So it actually infuriates me that she does this, that she essentially goes back and pretends that she's lived through something. Like, well, let's talk about the one-drop rule. Why are we discussing the one-drop rule? By the way, even if you were subjected to it, you probably would have passed.
Exactly.
Since none of your parents are listed as Negroes on your birth certificate. Like, what are you doing mining the history of Black people that came before you and who you are still refusing to name? You put them in a book once, but that was it. Now you don't want to talk about Grandma Beryl. What's up with that? Now you don't want to talk about great-grandma Iris Finnegan. What is up with that? And by the way, as I was considering that, her upbringing and how strange it is that she keeps leaning into this idea, like she was born 2 years before my mother was born, and my mother didn't live through segregation. My mother didn't live through any of this stuff. These are not her memories. These are the memories of my grandparents. My grandfather lived through segregation. I'm going, why does Kamala keep doing this? Like acting like she grew up in the 40s and in the 50s with these sorts of memories. And then I remembered suddenly that she did this on stage a while ago, where she got almost teary-eyed and emotional talking about busing and desegregation. I'm going to roll that back for you just to jog your memory. Take a listen.
You also worked with them to oppose busing. And, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me.
Okay. Guys, so you watch that clip, okay? You're an American. You see she's getting a little choked up, and you can instantly assume that what she means is that she was like a Ruby Bridges. Yeah, like that little girl was me in second grade. I was a part of the second class to be desegregated. Like that instantly signals, given the emotionality of it, that she was a Ruby Bridges. Talk about mining Black history. Well, let me be clear. She intentionally misled people here to make them believe that she was a young Ruby Bridges. This is how disgusting and despicable this woman is. She wanted people to go back in their minds to all they learned about Ruby Bridges, the images of Ruby Bridges having to be protected by police as she entered into that school in Louisiana. She wanted people to go back in their minds to that. That's why she's getting all choky. She's like on the brink of tears. That little girl. So to be perfectly clear here, that little girl went to Thousand Oaks Elementary School in Berkeley, and far from that impression she's giving, she did not live through any desegregation or any real desegregation at all, because as I mentioned, the schools had already gone through that before she was born, literally before she was born in 1947. In fact, the school district had to issue a statement after that performance on stage. And this is what they had to put up on their website for clarification. They wrote, "There has been some confusion in the media and social media around the Berkeley schools and integration due to the fact that our high school was already integrated, as evidenced, for example, by high school yearbooks, which show children of many race and ethnicities at school together prior to 1968. In Berkeley, we only have one comprehensive high school, so it was integrated by default. Our elementary schools, however, reflected the racial composition of our neighborhoods, which, like many neighborhoods across America, reflected the history of segregation stemming from policies which restricted the opportunities of non-white residents." So then they go on, "We recently celebrated the 50-year anniversary of our voluntary busing plan." And you can find additional details here. So let me clarify to you what actually happened in her childhood. There was no desegregation effort like that she had to live through. She was not Ruby Bridges. Rather, what they realized was because of the past in which you had Black people all living in one neighborhood, and this was contributed sometimes because of like red line districting. You had Black people living in one neighborhood. You had white people living in one neighborhood. What ended up happening was that you had schools which were like majority Black and which were majority white. And so what they wanted to do in Berkeley was to be the first to offer a busing plan to turn that around so that the buses would pick up students that lived far from the white school and bring them over there so that the schools would be more evenly mixed. That's what she's describing. So after they put and implemented this busing plan, Kamala was the second or third class since they had implemented this busing plan. Nothing to do with desegregation, just an effort to say, okay, we're realizing now if people are just districted according to where they live, you're going to have these schools that are like 85% black and some schools that are 85% white. That's what it is. So just thinking about the emotionality and how tricky she's being here, again, trying to allude to like some Ruby Bridges scenario, really makes me angry. It is just so unacceptable. I just can't stand this fraud.
I've been saying it for the longest that Kamala Harris is a freaking fraud. She's a liar. She try to manipulate people. That's what she do all the time. I grew up here. I grew up there. Obviously, she had it good. Dealing with Willie Brown her entire life is the reason she's in the position that she's in now is because of Willie Brown. Then she get in front of American people and lied about she worked at McDonald's. What she was trying to do is try to blend in with some of the people now that work at McDonald's to try to make them feel like, okay, now she's the vice president. Maybe I can be there one day because this woman came from working from McDonald's. That's what she's like. It's just a lies that she's trying to get people to believe. There's no evidence. It was McDonald's that she never worked there. So where did she get this crap? She worked at McDonald's. I was over the hot fries. She tells lie after lie after lie. That's what I'm saying. If she gonna tell a lie, and she ain't showed no proof of her working at McDonald's. No proof. She just saying it. No proof at all. Anybody can go out and say I did this or I did that. Where's your proof? Your mom is full-blown Indian. But you said, oh, she raised 2 black girls. Man, I tell you the truth.
And it's so important to state also that the one-drop rule was declared officially unconstitutional in 1967. That was just 3 years after Kamala was born. This is just not her childhood at all. Not her childhood at all. This is just what she does. She lies and she lies and she lies.
Yep.
But it gets better. It gets better. But first, I'm going to remind you guys about preborn because Kamala is indeed the first vice presidential candidate to ever visit an abortion facility. And Tim Walz supported a bill in his home state which legalized the denial of life-saving medical care to infants born alive after botched abortions. The media has dubbed this the abortion election. We have to stand up to this evil. When you join forces with Preborn, the largest pro-life organization in the nation, you are protecting the greatest victims in our society, babies that are in their mother's wombs. Preborn's network of clinics are positioned in the /Candace. That's preborn.com/Candace. So like I said, it gets better because yesterday I was going through her book that I downloaded. I downloaded that so that you didn't have to because I wanted to send a picture of her grandma Beryl to someone. So initially when we started looking into the story, my producer had downloaded the book. I had downloaded the book, but he had stumbled upon the picture of Beryl. So I hadn't actually flipped through the ebook that I had downloaded.
Okay.
And so remarkably, it was kind of the first time I was going to the picture segment looking for Beryl, and I realized Beryl's not in this book. I was going, wait, what's going on? This is her book. Where is the Beryl picture? And I said to my producer, like, did we make a mistake? Like, this is definitely in the book. He pulls his up. He has a picture of Beryl. Mine doesn't. I'm going, is this a different edition of the book? And yes, it was. There were actually 2 publications of the book. One in January of 2019, and then 5 months later, in May of 2019, they published what is known as a Young Readers Edition. Basically, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's meant to be for younger readers, and it's typically more pictorial, right? So they want to change a couple of words, essentially kind of dumb it down to make it easier to read and include more pictures. Yet in this edition, they decided to remove pictures. And it's just, I guess, ironic that the pictures that they removed for the Young Readers Later edition were pictures of Black Iris and Grandma Beryl. There were more pictures that were removed, but the family members were all still there, except for Black Iris and Grandma Beryl. I found that to be extremely interesting. Yeah. But suddenly I realized that I had never flipped through the book that had more pictures than the edition that I was holding. And I started going through them, and you guys are not even going to believe just how diabolical Kamala Harris is. It was just, I'm going to have to just go through this calmly because I am telling you, as a Black person, it's actually offensive how hard she tried to Blackify herself. And it made me think of the entire Emmanuel Macron, Brigitte Macron scandal, because the journalist that broke that story essentially said that what they do when they're running is they publish a book, and that is the legend that is established, essentially, because people in their minds think, oh, well, if it's in a book and a publisher agreed to publish it, HarperCollins published this book about Kamala, they must have fact-checked this, and all of this must be true. People have this wrong perception that if a book is published as nonfiction, that there was some effort of due diligence, which means that everything that you're reading is not fiction. So they do this, like it's like a rite of passage. I'm publishing this book, and I'm expecting everyone to just accept this as the legend of Kamala Harris. I'm going through these pictures, okay? And aside from Iris, and aside from Beryl, she also decided to include some other, what I would describe as noteworthy pictures of herself. Like this one, where she writes, "Sporting my fro, summer of 1970. But basically, you just know when you go through this that they essentially sat down as a team and were like, we're creating the legend. We need you to be Black, okay? This was published again in 2019. And they're like, we need that Black vote. Let's make it easy. Give me the blackest photos of you that you can possibly find. Like to put the caption of her afro is just signaling to Black people, hey, I'm Black, which is ridiculous because there's so many other races that have afros. Puerto Ricans have afros. Spanish people have afros.
Exactly.
Jewish people have afros. Mark, my director, is Jewish. He has an afro, okay? It is not like proprietary to Black people, but she's publishing this because like you're just supposed to look at the picture and go, oh, well, she's got an afro. I guess she's Black. She literally wrote that, okay? Then, of course, if you can imagine this team sitting down trying to process how to sell Black, you would go, well, Harlem, right? You got to put some pictures of Harlem here. And there are pictures of her in Harlem. Look at this photo. She just posts up right here, visiting my Uncle Freddie in Harlem. Harlem was always a magical place for me. Now, what's interesting about this picture is the man behind, I don't know if that's actually her Uncle Freddie, right? Like that came to my mind. I'm like, is this just like a guy working on the side of the street and she's just like including him because this picture shows a Black man that's in Harlem and again signals to Black people that like she's with her uncle up in Harlem.
Boy, she is trying her best to sell this. She tried her best to sell this book. Now she gonna put herself in the picture as a baby with a Black man in the background and then say it's in Harlem. I'm telling you. She is trying her best to just trick Black people, and that is exactly what she's still doing today. She just they put her right there to take a picture with a Black man sitting right there in the background. And as you can see, the Black man ain't even looking at her. He's looking somewhere else. So it could be just a Black person that just back there.
Kind of feels that way. But then I realized that she featured some more pictures of her Black aunties and her Black uncles, and we see Uncle Fred again. Take a look at this photo. This is going to drive you guys crazy because I still can't believe it when I read it. So you see three obviously Black people in this photo.
Wow.
You would not question the authenticity of their Blackness. And the caption reads, I'm blessed with an amazing family. I'll never be able to thank Auntie Chris, Uncle Freddie, and Aunt Mary enough for their constant encouragement and support. They always showed up for me, as they did here at a campaign event for my DA's race that we held at a San Francisco, you guessed it, jazz club, because hey, we're talking Harlem, we're talking Black people, we're talking afros. Let's also post a picture of you in a jazz club with your aunties and your uncles. And like Black people will just accept that you only have all these photos because you're like super Black. But then I said, wait a second, she doesn't have an Aunt Mary or an Aunt Chris, or an Uncle Fred. I've been deep in this woman's genealogy. Who are we talking about here? These people do not exist. And I said, is it possible that like somewhere in the book that she's alleging, probably assuming that no one is gonna actually read through, she acknowledges that these aren't her real aunties and uncles? And
it could just be somebody she knew and just said, well, that person is an auntie to me, that person is an uncle to me, so I'm just gonna call them Uncle Freddie, I'm gonna call them auntie this, or that's probably what she did. Like, she trying her best to convince people.
The answer is yes, my friends. There's a passage about Aunt Mary and Uncle Freddie in this book, The Truths We Hold, which is really just the greatest trick ever played on Black America. She writes this: "My mother surrounded herself with close friends who were really more like sisters. My godmother, a fellow Berkeley..."
That right there is where it kind of got me right there. My mother surrounded herself with close friends who really were more like sisters. And that goes to show you right there, like the people she's talking about could have been just close friends to the family, and they just treated her like an auntie or uncle. And she just said, well, you know what? That's my uncle. That's my auntie. And I believe for a fact that's what she did.
Student whom I knew as Aunt Mary was one of them. They met through the civil rights movement that was taking shape in the early 1960s and was being debated and defended from the streets of Oakland to the soap boxes in Berkeley's Sproul Plaza. As Black students spoke out against injustice, a group of passionate, keenly intelligent, politically engaged young men and women found one another. My mother and Aunt Mary among them. They went to peaceful protests where they were attacked by police with hoses. They marched against the Vietnam War and for civil rights and voting rights. They went together to see Martin Luther King Jr. speak at Berkeley, and my mother had a chance to meet him. She told me that at one of these anti-war protests, the marchers were confronted by the Hells Angels. She told me that at another, she and her friend were forced to run for safety with me in a stroller after violence broke out against the protesters. But my parents and their friends were more than just protesters. They were big thinkers, pushing big ideas, organizing their community. Aunt Mary, her brother, my uncle Freddie, my mother and father, and about a dozen other students organized a study group to read the Black writers that the university was ignoring. So you guys, what can I say here?
This is crazy.
I am being reduced to sound effects. She wrote this book, and she starts the sentence with her family. She's visiting her family in Harlem. This is maybe she wrote, "I have the best family," and shows multiple pictures of an Uncle Fred that isn't her Fred. Why did she do this? It's not her uncle, okay? It's just not her uncle. It's her mom's friend. And she dedicates so much time to him and the protests. And she's dropping Martin Luther King. And she's dropping W.E.B. Du Bois. Yep. And she's dropping so many other people that are Black in this book. For what reason? Because she's performing. Because this is a sleight of hand. Because they quite literally likely sat around in a boardroom and they said, how can we make you Black? I want to see every photo of you ever taken. And I'm going to tell you what in people's minds will just read like Blackness. So we've got Ruby Bridges now in people's memory, being embedded in people's memory. Yep. Now we've got this idea of her marching aunties and uncles in Harlem. It's just so unacceptable. It is so unacceptable. After going through all these photos, I made a joke to my producer and director. I was like, oh, what's next? Is there gonna be a picture of her just like eating collard greens and cornbread? Is she gonna be like, this is me eating collard greens and cornbread? I'm in Harlem. And they said back to me, no, she's done that. I said, no. I said, shut up. That's not true. She's not done that. There's no way. They said, yeah, no, there are clips of her speaking about collard greens. I said, I cannot believe this.
Because she said something about that she had so many collard greens that she used to have to wash them in a tub. I don't know what Black person washed their collard greens in a bathtub. I don't know where she got that from. If she thought that was a Black thing, because it's not. I never heard of no Black person washing collard. I don't care how many you got. Washing them in a bathtub? No.
Produce me the clip. And they did. Here it is.
I have a friend who had a Christmas party, Christmas Eve every year, and she asked me to make the greens for a party every year. And I am not lying to you that I would make so many greens that I'd need to wash them in the bathtub.
That's nasty.
I'm telling you the truth.
So how do you make your greens? Do you put turkey in them? Do you
bacon.
Nice. My grandma
I do bacon.
She's put
This is crazy,
I put
bro.
White vinegar. Yes. I do. So I start with, I slice up my garlic. But no, first I chop up the bacon and get all that fat going. Then I put garlic, some chili peppers, and then a lot of water and a little chicken stock. And I let it go for a while before I put the greens in. And then, right, so you get that going and all that flavor. and then I put the greens in for a couple hours. Then I do vinegar, and then I cheat and do a little Tabasco.
No, that's okay.
Yeah,
My
but
grandmother-
Tabasco of all, like I like Louisiana hot sauce, but Tabasco has that
look
right
at
amount
her
of
talking about
vinegar.
hot sauce.
Yeah, and that's how I do my green.
I see why you
You see, she was around black people, so she had to kind of juice it up and just say everything she know that black person put in their greens and how they do it. She knew exactly what she was doing. I guarantee you, if she was in front of a white person, she would have a differently total answer. I can guarantee you that. This woman is just as fake as I don't know what, a fraud.
And she brought it up again at another event. Take a listen.
Hey Marlon, so I know how to make a mean pot of greens. In fact, people used to ask me to make greens for them for Christmas. One year, I had so many that I had to wash that we ended up washing them in the bathtub. So I am not playing around.
Black America, listen to me. I'm speaking directly to you because I am not playing around either. If I catch you voting for this woman, I'm going to haunt you. I'm going to haunt you in your dreams. There will be nowhere that you can go where I will not haunt you. This is just, we have to come together. At some point in society, we have to come together to declare this unacceptable. Like, I don't care where you sit on the spectrum. This is the most not okay thing that I have ever seen in the history of politics. This is how she's shoring up black votes. She's going around talking about collard greens, putting in fake pictures of her uncles and aunties that are black while conveniently ignoring all of her aunties and uncles that are white. And people are just eating this up.
Eating it up.
Eating this up. Let me find that woman that was going, okay, to all that vinegar put into her collard. Okay, let me find her. I'm going to haunt her. I promise you that. But of course,
crazy.
guys, let's get to me speaking to her uncle. Because that actually happened. Like I promised you yesterday. I said I had a phone call. I was trying to wait for it to happen yesterday. Well, it happened last night. Part one of our phone call happened last night. We briefly spoke on the phone, I would say for about 10 minutes. And I first want to say just how much I liked this guy. I just had a feel like, okay, I'll be honest. I have a Caribbean bias. My former producer made it very clear to me that I have a Caribbean bias because she'd pitch me stories or like say like Rihanna did this. And I'd be like, I'm not going to say anything bad about Rihanna, or like Nicki Minaj. And she's like, but I have a Caribbean bias. This guy's got a Caribbean accent. My grandma had a very thick St. Tomian accent. So it was just like, I could sense his Caribbean calm. I can't explain to you. And I could just also sense that he was being incredibly honest and forthright. And he was speaking to me. And it was actually like very, I guess I would say just beautiful in a way, because he cared about this. He wanted to reach out because he cares so much about Vioris, you know, and he doesn't want whatever is going on with Kamala to make people have this perception of Vioris. And I told him right away that it was never my intention for him to get inundated. So I want to be clear. My understanding is that it's the press calling, but I want to make sure that there are no Candace Owens viewers that are going out there calling any of these relatives that are still alive, because we can find information online, but we definitely should not be harassing her relatives who have nothing to do with her running, and in many cases don't even agree with her politics. Like this person that I spoke to is a Candace Owens fan, conservative, as many Caribbeans are conservative, because like, you know, on the islands, that it's just not a lot of wokeness. I'll leave it at that. You know, why are you gay kind of a vibe going on. You are gay. It's a little bit more of like an island vibe. Anyways, I just said to him, look, we're just trying to get questions answered about Kamala's heritage because of her father's paper. I said, I have a lot of questions about your brother, Donald Harris. I just am not understanding anything in this paper. And I went through the holes in it. I went through the fact that, you know, he mentions this person.
Now, think about this. If Kamala Harris' uncle seen Candace Owens' videos, you know for a fact Kamala Harris done seen these videos, but she don't want to answer to any of it because she could put all of this to rest. But you know she got a book full of nothing but black people and trying to say that's her uncle and auntie and stuff like that while leaving out her other relatives. This is her way of trying to sell the book to black people and lying. It's like, come on, man. Y'all cannot fall for this crap.
Growing up, like they all kind of grew up on a farm together, but you're asking the question, like Beryl married this person. Why is he trying to make it seem like everyone grew up as one happy family? Why didn't he even mention Vioris at all, which is kind of the dog that didn't bark? And I asked him directly if he knew the Miss Iris that he is referring to in this book, in the Miss Iris that Donald J. Harris is referring to in his piece, rather, who he says is Iris Nay Finnegan. Again, very strange, because Iris should have never been Nay Finnegan. Finnegan was her married name. And he said, I can't answer that. I don't know that name. I want to be very clear. He has a relationship with Donald. He is close with Donald. They grew up together. He considers Donald his full brother. He has no idea who Miss Iris Finnegan is. This is Donald's brother that we're talking about. So I said, okay, that's of course of some interest to me. I asked him why it is that he's even then mentioning this Miss Iris. And he told me that he wanted to clarify something which was of most importance to me. He wanted me to know that before Vioris and Oscar Harris got married, Oscar Harris already had 3 children, okay? One of them being Donald. Now, to be clear, he is younger than Donald, a lot younger than Donald, so he wouldn't know much about if there was some family secret, he would not be aware of it. But to the best of his knowledge, like, this is what he was told, that they had 3 children before Vioris and Oscar got married. And I asked him, quite frankly, if he knew or heard of Beryl. He told me he does not know Beryl. Instant red flag to me. I'm like, what do you mean? Like,
Wow.
How do you not know? If you have a half sibling that you are close to and have been close to your whole life, how do you not know who their mom is? He said, I don't know who his mother is. You don't know who Donald Harris's mom is. The woman who started this entire thing, Beryl Finnegan, like the person who just flagged.
Because normally, like, when you grow up with somebody, you pretty much know who their mom is. You pretty much know everybody in their family, especially when you grew up with somebody, like, from younger all the way up to, like, you're older. You pretty much know their entire family. With him saying, like, he don't even know who this woman is, it's like, what is going on here? There's a lot of lying going on for a fact. And we've been going through this series. I think this is like the 5th or 6th video. And it's just a lot of things is not adding up that need to be answered. Like, this is crazy that like I said, her uncle don't even know who some of these people is.
To me as weird. Something is not right here. We now know that Donald Harris's brother does not know him. Okay. Like I said, he said that Oscar Harris had 3 children before he married Vioris. He mentioned that Donald was very close to them. He also said that Oscar Harris's children all had businesses, that Donald, when he was coming up, Donald was in university. They kept very close to him. He said that Donald has always been very, very private, and he doesn't like publicity. And I find that to be very interesting. What people, yeah, sure, there are some people who are exceedingly private, and there are some people who are exceedingly private because they have something to hide. And I, again, do not feel that Donald Harris was telling the truth about his upbringing. I think he gave some truths and kind of made it very murky in his Jamaican heritage piece, but some things that were objectively proven to be untrue. He told me that Kamala definitively knows Vioris, that he also knows her, that she visited Jamaica twice with her father, and that sometime after she had graduated college, she went down to Florida with her sister and she visited Vioris. So she had a relationship with Vioris. Unfortunately, Vioris did not make her book. And I think we know why Vioris did not make her book. Now, I have no...
Yeah, Vioris didn't make her book because she wanted to try to make that book make it seem like her family was black. So she wanted to leave out all the other relatives that was pretty much like white or something like this. So she wanted to make sure she wanted to keep that book as black as possible and only have black people in there saying that from Harlem and all of that. Like, she thinks she's slick, man. This woman really, really thinks she's slick, and she thinks she's fooling us. Because she knows, for a fact, she ain't got me fooled, she ain't got Candace fooled, I know she ain't got a lot of y'all fooled at all.
No reason not to believe the person that I spoke to. I just felt that he was being very authentic, and he was there to simply clarify some things, and that he didn't know the answers to some things. He authentically didn't know. And if he is telling me something that is not correct, then the reason why those things are not correct is not because he's trying to lie, but it's because he is not aware of them. So it leads us again to more questions about Donald Harris. Who is this guy? Who is his mother? Where is Beryl? Okay, where is Iris Finnegan? Why won't Kamala, who felt so I guess, close enough to Beryl and Iris to include them in their book, why won't she even mention them as an easy way to debunk what is being said? Why is she even mentioning the 1/8 rule? What are you talking about, Kamala? If you're telling us that your grandmother is Beryl, she looks pretty black to us, like that would make you more than 1/8 black. What's going on here? Why are we getting all iffy on the details?
Because she lied.
We've got a couple of lingering questions here, and I'll tell you what we are starting to think about. But first, I want to remind you to drink coffee, because it does look like the Beryl that is pictured with Kamala that I said looks like a 60-year-old woman. I'll show you the photo right here. Okay, so somebody came across a woman who has the same name, Beryl, who is still alive, very, very, very old. Now, this woman is not at all related to Kamala, judging by who her son is and doing that sort of a thing. She's not related to Kamala, but again, she has that same name. She's still alive, and we have confirmed that she is from that same town, that same place, Brownstown, Jamaica. So we know she would have been there at the same time. And like I said, she resembles the person that Kamala is trying to pass off as her grandma.
Yep.
Could this be the help? Could this be a woman that they just took a picture with? We're going to explore that lead, but first, a bigger lead. And now I can just send all of you guys to hunt and figure things out. By the way, I'm depressed because next week I'm on vacation, which means that we're going to have to stop this. Like tomorrow will be the last day of the investigation before we have to pause for a week and come back after Columbus Day. But anyways, here is something that you guys can help with. So remember in Donald J. Harris's piece, he mentioned only a sister, despite the fact that he has like at least 5 other siblings. He only mentioned Enid Maud Harris. He just calls her Enid. We were able to find her because one of you guys sent us a file, and it is confirmed that Enid is the sister that Donald Harris had, which predates his Oscar Harris's marriage to Vioris. And it turns out that she is just a half sister. We were able to determine this because we found her marriage certificate where both of her parents' names are listed. I'm going to show that to you right now so you can see that Enid Maud Harris got married at St. Peter's Church. This was in New York. And that she married a man named Hugh Ashton Watts. Okay. And you can see listed under her parents, we have Oscar Joseph Harris, and we also have Perline Curry. We cannot find Perline Curry, and we cannot find Hugh Ashton Watts. Now, both of these people would be dead today. Okay, so again, we're just asking you to crawl through online looking for documents to determine who these people are. It's like without a trace. We know that Enid is still alive. Obviously, Enid is very advanced in age, so do not call Enid and ask any questions. We are not okay with that. We are not here to harass elderly people. We're just looking for answers because there is a plausibility that maybe Perline Curry is his true mother that he's not telling us about. Maybe Perline Curry is Kamala Harris's grandmother and not Beryl, right? So again, we have questions here, and the fact that we can't find Perline Curry, we just want to know what race she is, what she looks like. That's really kind of the information that we're looking for. And again, a good start here is you can find Perline Curry, or if you can find Hugh Ashton Watts. And we know that they got married in New York. We know that they lived at least for a short time in the Bronx. We're sending you guys out to explore those leads as we continue to try to get to the bottom of Kamala's heritage, because I personally do not accept that I need therapy, as she says. If you are even asking a question, you need therapy. No. Like I said, we are only here because you sent out your media goons to go after Janet Jackson and to try to paint her as crazy. We're only here
because that was a thing, like, and I told y'all before, when she went after Janet Jackson, that's when she pissed off Candace Owens. And the problem is that Janet Jackson didn't even say nothing. Janet Jackson just said, I heard she wasn't black. That's the only thing Janet Jackson didn't come out and say she ain't black. She said, I heard. And the woke media just went off on Janet Jackson. Just straight went off on her. Because she said she heard. So the woke media, the mainstream media, they are trying their best to protect Kamala Harris. They want her to. See, a lot of them black women and stuff that's over there on CNN, they know for a fact Kamala Harris is not black. They know it. But they want her to run with that because they don't want Donald Trump to win. Because the problem is that a lot of these people want to vote for Donald Trump, but since they don't like Donald Trump, they'll just rather vote for Kamala Harris, knowing she already going to ruin your life like she's doing America right now. She don't know what she's doing. So a lot of people only voting with her because they don't like Donald Trump, when Donald Trump is going to make your life better. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. Like, things like that will help. Bringing grocery prices down, bringing energy down. Kamala Harris ain't finna do any of that. She already said she's gonna raise your taxes. This is what she said. And people is still falling for her crap, and all this woman doing is lying. It's like, that's why I got to the point where I just stopped reacting to a lot of Kamala Harris interviews. The reason why I kind of slowed down on it, because it's like every single interview, she say the same thing. Are we better off than we was 4 years ago? Well, you know, I grew up in the middle class. My mom did this. It's like, it's the same thing. It's like she's on repeat. The same thing. And then she get in front of these people that interviewing her, won't give any pushback. Let her say whatever she want to say. And that what pisses me off. So I'm like, man, I can't do this no more. This woman is on repeat. I ain't got time to be still reacting to all these interviews she do. And she get on there and say the same thing. It's not even too much of the same things that they won't even do any pushback. They won't say, hey, well, Kamala, you lying. What about when you said this? It's never any of that. If they're going to have an interview where they fact checking her and say, no, you a liar because of this, then I'll react to it. But it's like, it's the same thing. That's why she keep getting interviewed by people who won't give any pushback.
Because we have now arrived at the stage where you've gone from bringing Megan Thee Stallion out to shake her butt, you're walking out to Beyonce, you're talking about collard greens, you're dropping fake black relatives to kind of persuade people that you have this black upbringing, you're talking about Harlem. You don't get to pull a 180 and pretend that it's irrelevant.
Yep.
Okay? Because you know when Trump was on stage and he said to you, look, I don't care whatever she is. Well, let me tell you, I disagree with him. I care. You've now caught my attention, okay? And common sense says to me that if
like the difference is, Donald Trump gotta say that because you know for a fact if he just slip up and say anything, they're gonna run with, oh, Donald Trump a racist. He just said this about a black woman. So Donald Trump have to kind of watch what he say. The reason why he was like, you know what, whatever you want to be, it don't matter to me. So Donald Trump, like I agree with what he said. Because I'm telling you now, he'd said anything else, the media was going to run with it and spin it around and try to convince every black person in America that Donald Trump is a racist. Look what he just said to a black woman, when this woman ain't even black. But that's what they would have said. So I feel like Donald Trump gave the correct answer. But me, on the other hand, Candace Owens, on the other hand, oh, no. We ain't going to say that. We going to call it out. But Donald Trump had to say that. But like I said, for a fact, me and Candace Owens, we ain't even do that. We going to call her out.
Any person was put in a seat and asked about their heritage, and someone said, what do you think about these rumors that you aren't black? All you would do is start listing your relatives that are black and say how foolish it was. And she's not doing that.
She's instead
running Operation Gaslighting. And you know what? Shame on those people. Shame on Matt Barnes for not pushing her.
Put
her feet to the fire. You don't get to just mine black history and black pain to try to present yourself as the first black female presidential candidate. It doesn't work like this. It's completely unacceptable. Yep. Nobody would have cared if you ran and you said, I am Indian Irish. Not a single soul would have cared.
Nobody would have cared.
Okay? You did this. You did this, and we're not going to let it go because nobody messes with Janet Jackson.
That's right.
All right, guys, before we get into your comments, I want to remind you that this episode is sponsored by Nimi Skincare. It's my
All right, well, there we go right there. I think she's just going to be taking comments from her comment section and stuff like that. But salute to Candace for another video. I think she said she's going to do another one tomorrow. We'll cover that one too. And I think she said she's going to take a week off of vacation. And when she come back, she's going to cover it. So when she does come back, we're going to be right back on it. We're going to get because the thing with me is I want to help Candace get these videos out. Like I want to make sure more people get their eyes on Candace Owens videos. Now, like I said before, we've been doing pretty good. I've been enjoying the videos that Candace has been showing. And the reason why I said before, even though she gets like millions of views on her videos, because like I said, more people are seeing it. So if I can pitch in and help her out and get maybe another 50 or 60,000 people to see it who probably didn't see it, and make sure I send them over to her channel. Make sure you go subscribe to Candace Owens. It kind of helps. It helps get the message out there. So like I said before, salute to Candace Owens. There was another great video. Make sure y'all please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.